Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a video I've been very excited for, and that is the 22 best books I read this year, 2022, and boy is this going to be a doozy. I have a huge list here to go through. I will try to be succinct, and we have 22 different books. A lot of these are mysteries, historical fiction, thrillers, so if you're into that, stick around, and let's go ahead and hop into our very first book. So the first one I want to talk about today is one that I read all the way back in January, and that is My Cousin Rachel by Daphne DuMaurier, and this is a fantastic book. I know a lot of people are familiar with Rebecca because of the Alfred Hitchcock film and also because it's probably her most famous work. However, My Cousin Rachel, which I checked out from my library, is excellent. I think it's just as good actually, which is my hot take. I really enjoy it. The basic premise of this is that we're following this young man in his 20s, and from a young age he was adopted by an older relative who's a single bachelor, and he's quite a bit older. He's like 4 decades or so older. They live in England. They live on this big estate. It's very gloomy and atmospheric and everything, just like this author's writing always is. But basically Ambrose, I believe is the man's name, and he gets sick. So he ends up going off to Italy where, the climate's nicer, there's warmer weather and everything, to try to recover. While he's out there, he runs into his cousin Rachel, and the two of them end up getting married. And so all this is being told to the person that we're following, the story from his perspective, through letters and stuff. However, while he's gone, he ends up dying, and the suspicion from our main character here is that Rachel may have had something to do with it. So the book is like a very suspenseful read. It kind of goes, it's just interesting. I feel like her breakdown with human psychology and stuff is super interesting, and it's just fascinating to kind of debate whether or not this man was coerced into getting married in the first place because he was a chronic bachelor, never had an interest in women, or was he actually smitten and he, did want to get married, or there's just all this drama with that, and it's very interesting. It's so incredibly suspenseful. I'm still going over the ending in my brain over and over again, and it's been since January. It's been 12 months and I'm still thinking about this book, so it had to make this list. The next one I want to bring up is actually a series. I read all 3 books in the series this year, and it's fabulous, and that is the Tita Rosie's Kitchen mystery series. I have this one here from my library. It's the latest one. It was just released in October. It's called Blackmail in Babinka, and it's a Christmas one, as you can kind of tell from the coloring and the little Santa hat here. Basically, this story follows our main character, Layla, who is a Filipino-American, and she has a pretty large family that she is living with. In the first book, she starts to work in the family's restaurant, which is Tita Rosie's Kitchen, her aunt, and things are going well at first. It's not her dream job or anything, but they're going well enough until someone dies in the restaurant. And so the restaurant is shut down, and her family and herself are under suspicion because they were there, of course, during the actual death and everything, and she's just a really relatable character, really interesting. As the series expands, I feel like you really get a pretty good character arc with her. I feel like she really develops through each book. I like seeing her expanding friendship circle and all the interesting characters that are being brought in. It's so good. This was the latest in the series. Each one of these I think has gotten a strong 4.5 to 5 stars from me. I'm a huge fan of this series. I cannot wait for next year because I'm hoping and guessing that another book will be coming out next year, and yeah, I couldn't recommend this series enough. Homicide and Halo was my very favorite. That was actually book 2, but all 3 of them were well worth the read to me and just highly anticipated and enjoyed for me, and I'm so glad I read these this year. The next one is another new release this year, and that is Peg and Rose Solve a Murder by Laurien Berenson. So this follows 2 main characters, Peg and Rose, and they are actually sisters-in-law. And you would think from the title, because they're solving a murder together, that they were on good terms, but they're not. They've had decades of tension and just messiness and family drama, and they don't necessarily like each other. So it starts out with the 2 of them hating each other's guts, basically. However, one of them tries to reconcile by asking the other to bridge club. They start going to a bridge club together and playing, and one of the members ends up dying. They start to solve the murder. There's a lot of interesting tidbits about bridge club, and one of, I believe it's Peg, is a dog groomer. She loves poodles. She has poodles, and she also judges poodles professionally, which I think is really cool. I've never really read a cozy mystery with that kind of profession in it, so that was super interesting. Super interesting. This book series is a takeoff of another cozy mystery series. I can't remember the name. I'll put it on screen. I haven't actually read that other series, but this one is very good. You don't have to read the other one, of course. This one you can just start on its own. I'm really enjoying it. I can't wait for book 2 in the series, and I thought both of the characters were very interesting, very well fleshed out. I loved their motivations, their different personalities. I loved how they clashed with each other. I loved how they worked together. I thought it was great. I thought they were such enjoyable characters to read about. The mystery was great. I would highly recommend that one. So another series that I started this year that I'm really enjoying is a historical fiction mystery series, and that is the Spokane Clock Tower mystery series by Patricia and Meredith. This is the first book in the series, Butcher, Baker, Candlestick, Taker, and I love this. I thought this was so enjoyable. So this takes place, I want to see, 1901 Spokane. Basically, our main character, Archie Prescott, has traveled to Spokane, and he's kind of like an inventor, and he's really excited because he's having a meeting with like a potential patroness who is going to like fund his projects and things. However, shortly into this, a murder does occur, and it kind of throws everyone into, you know, a huge disruption. You get to follow multiple storylines in this, which I thought was really well done. I thought everything wove together really well. I thought it was easy to follow each individual character, and I really enjoyed this. I really felt like I was walking the streets of Spokane in 1901. All the little details were just right. I loved it. In total, there's 6 different storylines you're following. It's really interesting. You get to follow the perspective of a detective, an inventor, some of the people in the actual household where somebody dies. It's so good. The ending for this came together so beautifully. All the details and like how it happened and why and everything, I just was blown away. It was great. I don't want to give anything away, but I really recommend this if you like historical fiction. I just started the second book, which is Cupboards All Bared, and I'm really, really excited to get more into that. So yeah, that is a book series that I'm definitely looking forward to continuing into the new year, and I would definitely recommend book 1. I really, really enjoyed it. Another historical fiction series that I really enjoyed this year is the Lady Hardcastle mystery series. The first one in the series is called A Quiet Life in the Country by T.E. Kinsey. This is an English cozy mystery historical fiction series, and it's super enjoyable. I want to say it takes place in like the very late 1800s, and what makes this one special is that you have Lady Hardcastle, and then you have her maid Florence, otherwise known as Flo, and they are a dynamic duo. They're highly entertaining. They have the wittiest banter between the two of them. I actually laugh sometimes at their banter, like out loud when I'm reading, which is pretty uncommon. So it's very, very witty banter. The mysteries are very well put together. It has like a very, I would say both this Lady Hardcastle mystery series and then the Butcher, Baker, Candlestick, Taker, they both have kind of Agatha Christie style like mysteries to me, where there's like a lot. It comes together at the end and it's like, wow, like a lot. Like every little detail just like cinches together so perfectly. So I would highly recommend either of those series if you're looking for a good historical fiction. The Butcher, Baker, Candlestick, Taker one is a little more graphic. I wouldn't say it's like extremely graphic. Like not much like happens like on the page, but there are some descriptions. And then the Lady Hardcastle one is a little bit more on the cozy side, but both are excellent. I would really, really recommend both. So this year was the first year I really got into like contemporary thrillers. Like I had read a couple psychological thrillers that were more like classics, but I'd never read a contemporary thriller before, and I had to include the one that kind of kicked off my love for thrillers this year, which is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. This basically takes place where you have a wedding that is occurring on this remote island. It's super creepy, it's stormy, everyone's trapped on the island. You have like the bridesmaid, the bride, the groom, the groomsman, and someone is murdered, and you're basically working back, you know, from the first chapter, like it's in the present tense, but it goes back with like flashbacks and different perspectives throughout different characters in the past, and you kind of are trying to piece together who even died, like how was it done. I was completely blown away. I did not call the ending whatsoever, and it was such a thrilling read for me. I read it in under 24 hours. Like I could not like physically put it down. Like every spare second I had in between doing work and like, you know, after work in the evening, like I was reading that book. I had to know. So that to me makes a really good thriller. It was very fast paced, very engaging. Definitely, it's a thriller, so it's definitely more on the graphic side than a lot of like the mysteries I read, but it was very much a great one. And I did also really enjoy The Paris Apartment, which I read later this year by Lucy Foley, although I would say The Guest List was still my all-time favorite from her. And speaking of thrillers, I also really enjoyed Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. That one, so I'm kind of mixed feelings about the author because one of the worst books I read this year was also by Riley Sager. On the other hand, Lock Every Door I loved. I thought it was so well done. It felt very much like The Guest List to me, where it was very fast-paced, very intense. Basically, you have this like really creepy but like ritzy apartment setup, and our main character is hired to be an apartment sitter because it's like a luxury apartment. They don't want the apartment just sitting there like at risk of being like broken into or anything, so they're literally paying her to stay at this apartment. However, as you would suspect, some fishy things start happening in the apartment. She finds out that the person that was in that room before her had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. She starts to investigate. It's very creepy. The ending for that, let me put it this way, it was basically a good thing that I finished it around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because if I had finished that before bed, I would have been up for like another hour trying to calm myself down. So it was a very good thriller, very much intense, fast-paced, scary ending, at least for me, and I thoroughly recommend both of those for thrillers. Another historical fiction mystery series that I started this year and really enjoyed is the Harlem Renaissance mystery series by Nekesa Afia. The first book in the series is called Dead Dead Girls, and I also read Harlem Sunset, which came out this year and was the second book in the series. And basically Dead Dead Girls features our main character Louise, who is a young woman. She's like in her, I want to say, mid to late 20s. She's an African American woman living in the Harlem area during the 20s, and she is a very flawed character, which I love. This book didn't shy away from her flaws at all. They made her this extremely fleshed out person who had so many strengths and so many positive points, but they also didn't shy away from showing, like, you know, any weaknesses that she had and kind of playing with that. I thought the mystery was really interesting. She's also a very reluctant sleuth, if you enjoy that kind of a book. So unlike a lot of these other mysteries I've brought up so far, she didn't go nosing around into the mystery. She kind of got sucked into it and kind of forced into solving a mystery alongside the police, because they want someone to spy on different people in the community, and because the police force was, you know, filled with like white men, they wouldn't be able to go about in specific areas without like standing out like a sore thumb, basically. So they kind of strong arm Louise into helping, and she starts to sleuth and get involved in this, and it's just a gripping mystery. It's really, really interesting. It's intense. The historical details are super interesting. I really, really enjoyed that. I loved hearing about the 20s some more as well. And I thought the mystery for it was rather good too. Harlem Sunset was also very interesting. That one involves a little bit more of Louise's girlfriend, which is really interesting, and I thought it was great. Both of the covers for this, is the cover art not stunning? I think it's so stunning. I can't get over how beautiful the covers are, and like her dresses in each of them. Absolutely stunning. So next we actually have 2 books from the same series. I've read like 5 in this series, but I had to mention both of these because they were just standouts for me. And that is Crust No One and Flower in the Attic. These are both part of the Bread Shop mystery series by Winnie Archer. This is a cozy mystery series, as you could probably guess from the covers. I absolutely love this. Not only is there a pug, which, I mean, how great is that? And the pug's name is like Agatha, I think, after Agatha Christie, so it's great. I love it. Basically, the Bread Shop mystery series features our main character, Ivy. She's a freelance photographer, and also she works at like a bread shop as an assistant. There's lots of yummy scenes. It's one of my favorite culinary cozy mysteries. I'll link a video I did recently talking about like a list of cozy mysteries that are like culinary food themed ones. I'll link that above if you want to check out more recommendations in that niche. The thing I love most about the series is the female relationships, and they're like multi-generational. So you have Ivy, you have her octogenarian neighbor, Miss Branford, who's really awesome. You have Olea, who owns the bread shop and is like a mentor to Ivy, and she is just a wonderful, warm person. You also get involved with her sisters and stuff in different mysteries, which I really enjoyed. The Crust No one features a missing like handyman. Basically, he is missing. He doesn't show up for work. It's really strange because he's very reliable, and Ivy, along with the help of her ex-high school boyfriend, who is kind of on tense terms with her, kind of start to look for him. And I do not want to give anything away about this, but this cozy mystery was, wow. I mean, it went deep, it went hard, the mystery was excellent, the ending to this, like, slapped me across the face. Like, it was just so good. I loved it. I love book 3 and 1 in this series as well, but book 4, Flower in the Attic, was the other one that really stood out to me. Basically, this one involves a resident of the town of Santa Sofia, which is where the series is set. It's a beachside town, I think, in California, and one of the residents actually ends up washing up on shore, and she was a really lovely woman, beloved by the town, and also a very strong swimmer, so it's really strange that she died drowning. Not impossible, but strange. Ivy has a hunch that there was some kind of foul play involved. She starts to look into it, and it's even more sad because the woman who washed up on shore, her father had recently died as well, so there's just a lot of tragedy surrounding this family, and they start to look into it, and again, the ending for this hit me like a pile of rocks. It was so emotionally compelling. The reasoning behind it, like, gave me chills. Everything about both of these really hit me in the feelings. I actually sat there after I finished both of these and just had to sit there and, like, decompress for a few minutes because the endings were so good. So I highly recommend these. I think this is one of the best cozy mystery series that I've personally read, and these two are my favorites so far in the series. Really love them. Speaking of cozy mystery series, another one that I started this year after my sister gifted me the first 3 in the series for my birthday. I started reading these in March, and I'm now on book 6 or something. Like, I've read quite a few of them, and that is the Noodle Shop Mystery Series by Vivien, Chien, and I love these. These are great. The first book in the series is Death by Dumpling, which I have right here. Basically, it features our main character, Lana Lee, who is working at her family's noodle shop after a very tumultuous breakup with her work and everything. So she's back there. She's not super thrilled about it, but, you know, she's making do, and the noodle shop is located in this, like, plaza. I believe it's called Asia Village. Yeah, so the plaza is called Asia Village, and basically the property manager in the first book shows up dead, and he actually has an allergic reaction to some food that Lana delivers, and it's just very dramatic, very well thought out. I love seeing her development throughout the books. I think her family is very interesting, very relatable, like, just some of the drama and, like, her and her sister fighting. It's you know, it's relatable. Like, I feel like, you know, everyone's got family members that bicker even though they love each other, and I love this. I thought this was a great series. I think the mysteries are consistently solid, enjoyable, cozy, and the food descriptions make my mouth water, which is always important when you're reading a food-themed cozy, in my opinion. This next one will probably come to no surprise because it's one of, I think, the most renowned novels maybe in the world, but definitely in the mystery genre, and that is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Wow. Okay. If you're not familiar with this, I know it's a very well-known plot in a lot of books, even like The Guest List or like One by One by Ruth Ware. I feel like they kind of have taken inspiration from it. Basically, 10 different strangers are invited to this island, and they're all invited under different premises. So some of them are like hired to do something, some of them are told that they're meeting a friend, or they're invited to a party, or different, you know, circumstances bring them here. However, none of them actually know each other. So they're all arrived and they all kind of start to suspect something's up because they're looking around like, okay, my friend isn't here or my employer isn't here. Like, they're, you know, they know something's up. But they have dinner, and after the dinner, someone ends up dying. And at first I think, okay, maybe, you know, maybe it's just an accident. Maybe some, you know, they kind of push it off, basically. However, one by one, people start to die, and they start to get paranoid. There's this really macabre, like, nursery rhyme on the door that seemingly correlates a little bit, like, with the deaths and stuff. So you're kind of sitting there like, what's happening? Like, it's so suspenseful. You don't know if there's someone on the island with them or if it's one of them that's killing the others. It's so suspenseful. If you have not read it, I would highly recommend it. Also, I did end up watching this BBC series. I think it was a collection of like 3 long form like episodes. So I think they were like 45 minutes to an hour. So it was like a very long movie if you watch them all in one go. And I did really like it. I thought they followed the book pretty well. But the ending for this, wow, blew me away. I was just so stunned. It's a fantastic read. It's not actually very long. It's 240 some pages, at least this copy is. And I would highly recommend it. If you haven't read any Agatha Christie, this would probably be a good place to start because it's a standalone. and it's just highly entertaining. I would really recommend it. Another one I would recommend, as with, I love this whole list really, but another one I really loved was The Rise of Kyoshi by F.C. Yee. This is part of the Avatar: The Last Airbender series, so if you're familiar with the TV series at all, I personally love that series, and The Legend of Korra, huge fan. But they also have books that are based on avatars from the past, and they actually just released one called The Dawn of Yang Chen, which is a different avatar that I actually just picked up from my library. I'm very excited to read it. But The Rise of Kyoshi is the first one in the series. There's only 2 in total. The other one is The Shadow of Kyoshi, and it is fabulous. When I say the characters in this are some of the most fleshed out, well-rounded, like just amazing characters I've ever read. I love Rengi in this. That's one of the people that gets involved in Kyoshi's life and this like training her in firebending, and it's just fabulous. Such an amazing series. The writing is so descriptive and beautiful. You can see everything so clearly as you're reading. It's a beautiful like young adult fantasy, I would say, and especially if you're a fan of the series, the TV series, I would really recommend it. It's just fabulous. Another top read for me this year was Death of the Lit Chick by G.M. Mallet. This is the second book in the Saint Just mystery series, so it is a cozy mystery series. Our main character is like a small-time, I think he's like a detective or private investigator, so he's like has some kind of background in it, but it does feel very much like a cozy like Hercule Poirot type setup. The mysteries are set in contemporary times, but they feel very much like old school golden age mysteries, and this is actually book 2 in the St. Just mystery series. I really enjoyed book 1, but the Lit Chick one was especially good. The writing was fabulous. The premise of this one is that all of these writers are coming together. They're all like mystery romance writers, like just top writers in their field. So they're getting together for some kind of convention, and one of them ends up dying, and there's a lot of people who would have wanted this person dead because of their success, and a lot of the other authors weren't nearly successful, so there's all this jealousy and anger, and like it's great. It's so good. It feels very much like a classic, like kind of Agatha Christie style golden age mystery. I love that the main characters in this that we're following are all writers. I think that's always a really fun premise. I like reading about writers. I think it's really interesting, and the mysteries for these are pretty well thought out, fairly intricate, but on the cozy side. There's definitely not like any graphic violence or anything like that, so I would definitely recommend that series. That was my particular favorite from the series so far, but the series as a whole was really good. Another one I'm really enjoying is the Pen and Ink mystery novel series by Krista Davis. I want to say the first book in this is called Color Me Murder. The second one is called The Coloring Crook, which is what I have right here, and I'd say this is my personal favorite. I've enjoyed the 4 that are out so far, which I've read all 4, but The Coloring Crook has probably been my favorite. The Pen and Ink mystery series takes place with our main character, Florrie Fox. She works at a bookshop that also sells coloring books, and she herself is an artist and draws like coloring sheets and books as well. So I think that's a really fun twist on the traditional like kind of bookish cozy. I think the coloring book element is really cool. This particular one actually involves like a valuable coloring book, which I had never thought of that actually being a thing, but it makes sense. So you get to learn some really interesting like history about coloring books and like the history. It's really cool. But basically Florrie's friend I think inherits one, and she ends up being murdered for the coloring book, and Florrie's on the case. And I just love Florrie. I think she's a spunky character. She's a very well-educated character, I feel like. She's smart. She also sketches like different people's faces and different like scenes from the crime in her sketchbook, which I think is really interesting, and sometimes that helps her figure things out. It's really, really interesting, and I love the covers for these. Like, how stunning is this? If you really wanted to, you could color it. There's the coloring shop there actually, but I don't want to ruin my cover, so I won't. But really recommend this series. This one in particular was my favorite. You can read them out of order if you want, but the series as a whole is really good. Another one I'm really enjoying is Body and Soul Food by Abby Collette. This is the first book in this particular series. It's a new release that just came out the previous year. The second book just came out in this fall, and it basically involves 2 twins who have found each other as adults. So they were separated at birth. One of them went into foster care, and the other one Keaton was actually adopted into like a family, and she lived a pretty like normal, happy like upbringing, and then Kobe grew up in the foster system. Together as adults, they are reunited and they decide to open a bookshop that's like a cafe as well, because Kobe loves to cook, specifically a lot of southern dishes, so those are some really mouth-watering dishes. I've never wanted to try fried okra as badly as I have after like reading that book. It sounded so good the way it was described in the book. And then Keaton is like an ex-librarian, so she is curating the bookshop for them. And so everything's going well until Kobe's foster brother, who is becoming like a mutual friend for them, ends up being murdered. And so they are kind of initial like suspects on the case, and they're also just really emotionally involved because this was Kobe's foster brother, so they're looking into it. There's also a character named Mama Zola, who is Kobe's like foster mother, who kind of like taken him under her wing, and she is the most delightful and colorful character. I've enjoyed reading about her so much, so I cannot wait to read book 2 in the series. And it's just, again, another great culinary cozy mystery, a great start to the series. I love the dynamic between the two twins, because Keaton's trying to really solve the mystery, Kobe's trying to protect her. It's just a really great dynamic, very believable, great characters, great descriptions of food. What else could I ask for? The next one I want to recommend is A Murder is Announced by Agatha Christie. I read a lot of Agatha Christie this year, especially the Miss Marple series, and A Murder is Announced is one of my favorites. This one involves a murder literally being announced in the newspaper. Just, like, in the newspaper. Like, I don't know what, like, I guess I'd call the police if I saw that, but it's just such a strange setup. But basically, a murder is announced in the paper. It's told it's going to happen at this time, at this person's house, and a lot of the townsfolk think it's kind of like a game. Like, you know, some people do like murder games or like themed nights or things, so they kind of show up with just being curious and nosy, basically. However, a murder actually does happen at this place when it's supposed to, and it's just very strange. There's a lot of interesting clues to this that I had no idea were there until everything was revealed at the end. The conclusion for this blew me away. Just an amazing Miss Marple mystery. Miss Marple is just such a great nosy character who just notices everything. I mean, nothing escapes this woman. She knows everything. Like, she sees all, she knows all. It's amazing. I absolutely love her. The other Miss Marple that really stood out to me was The Moving Finger, and this one involves townsfolk being sent different letters, and they're like made of like cutouts, and the letters are basically saying these horrible things about people. Like, they're saying, oh, you've had an affair, or you're cheating on this, or you're, you know, just accusing people of terrible things. And of course, people are pretty upset about these. And some people, you know, maybe it's true, maybe that's why they're upset. Some people maybe feel like they've been falsely accused. But it starts to really build tension in the town, and someone ends up actually taking their own life as a result of the letter that they got. So Miss Marple starts to look in on the case and try to figure out who is sending these letters, what the purpose of the letters is. It's fascinating. I think the premise for this is just really good. It's so entertaining. I really love it. On the sweeter side, I would recommend Marmee by Sarah Miller. This is a retelling of one of my favorite classics, Little Women. I've read this so many times. I think the words are engraved into my soul. I absolutely love this classic. But basically, it involves 4 little women who are women growing up like during the Civil War, and their Marmee, who's their mother. And the Marmee retelling is basically retelling the story of Little Women, but from the mother's perspective. So you get a much darker, more realistic look at things, because, you know, in this story, the girls are like as young as like maybe 10 at some points, like 10 to like teens, and they, you know, they get into their adulthood later on in the series. But in Marmee, you really get to look at it from a darker point of view. You get to find out how the March family came into financial trouble. You get to hear about her worries and concerns because her husband is out, like, off to war. It's just a really interesting look at the history of the time. There's more explanations for some of the situations that the March family is in the original book, but it's kind of fleshed out more in the retelling. And this is such a near and dear book to me. I was really nervous to read a retelling, but it was so worth it. It's very much cozy, but also dark and realistic and sometimes bleak because of the times. It's a really great read. I definitely cried a couple of times during this book because it just got so emotionally convicted by what I was reading, so I really, really recommend that, especially if you have read Little Woman and you're a fan. I would read Marmee. It was really great. Another thriller that I read that I just really, really loved was Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This is my first book by this author. I've never heard of her, but I saw it was like a big release for Book of the Month, and a lot of people were talking about it, and I was interested. Basically, this one also takes place on a remote island. Apparently, that's a theme that I really like, and this one involves a family. So this family is being called to go to their like grandmother's home. It's on the island, and she's turning 80. She wants to celebrate her birthday with them. This family is not close at all. Like, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of issues, the parents are separated, but they all decide to get together for the sake of the grandmother. So the character we're following is named Daisy, and she is one of the siblings. They all get to the island, there's a lot of tension, they're sitting down having dinner together when the grandmother stands up and is basically like, look, I'm going to tell you guys how I've written the will, which is an interesting after dinner conversation, I guess. But basically she announces that none of them are getting like any of her money, basically. Like, they're getting random objects and things, but like nobody's getting the money that they've all been depending on. There's some not so nice characters that are pretty, you'd say pretty greedy probably. And people are upset, of course. People are very upset, and afterwards the grandmother ends up passing away under mysterious circumstances. People start to disappear or die one by one, and we're following Daisy as she's trying to put together the clues and figure out what on earth is happening here. It threw me for a loop. The detail in this book was very good. The ending absolutely threw me. I was floored. I kind of called a little bit of it, but like other parts I was completely like unaware of, had no idea. I loved learning the family history because since all these people are so closely related to each other, you get to see all this interesting family drama that's been building for like decades at this point. So it was very, very interesting, very compelling because of the family drama that was put together in this book. I really, really recommend it. It was definitely a page turner for me. I thought it was a little slower at first, like it took a little time to kind of kick off, but once it did, I was flying through those pages. It was very thrilling. The ending sold me. I thought it was so well done, and wow, it was really, really good. Very, very dark and very suspenseful, so I'd highly recommend that one. Another one I really loved this year was On Thin Icing by Ellie Alexander. That is part of the Bake Shop Mystery Series, which features Jules. It's in Ashland, Oregon, and Jules is basically in town. She's working with her mother at the family bake shop called Tort, and she's like a master baker. There's a lot of great food scenes in this, but what gets me about this series is the setting. The setting and like the seasons and holidays are so well done in this series. If you're looking for one that really takes the setting and seasons to the next level, this is a great series for that. But in this particular one, our main character Jules and one of her like apprentices end up going to like a ski resort, and they get snowed in. So I just love those like closed mysteries where everyone's snowed in or cut off on a remote island, so you know it's someone there. I love that type of mystery, and this one in particular was really, really good. I enjoyed it. There's some drama with like Jules' kind of estranged husband showing up. There's the snowed in aspect. There's somebody who goes like missing. It's really, really great. The snowy weather is fabulous. I enjoyed it entirely. The mystery was great. I really don't want to give anything away. Sometimes it's hard to describe mysteries because you don't want to give anything away, but you want to give enough where you're interested. But if you are somebody who loves really beautiful settings, you like a closed mystery, this one in particular from the series was good, but the series as a whole has really great character development throughout. I would recommend reading it in order if you can, because I loved seeing the development of Jules and her mother's life, and also the characters, like the employees at the shop. They all get their own storylines. It's very well done. Like, nobody feels flat in this book. They always feel very dynamic to me, which I really appreciate. Okay, and last but not least, book 22, technically kind of a series, but number 22 for this list's purposes, is the Madame Chic series by Jennifer L. Scott. This is a nonfiction kind of memoir style book series that basically talks about just living an elegant life, and I'm not talking like you have to be ritzy or like luxurious necessarily, but just living a life where, you know, you put in just a little extra effort every day, where you make every day a exciting occasion for yourself, where you really just enjoy everyday living. It's got some great tips for, you know, just making things a little more special in your everyday life, not getting hung up on like the mundaneness of everyday life. It has some really great anecdotes from Jennifer's time. She's originally from California and she ended up living in France for like a year or two as an exchange student, and it's got some really amazing like culture shock moments and stories that kind of, this is what inspired her to change her ways and to really live life a little more formally, and to just put that extra effort in to make everyday life special, whether it's dressing up just a little bit more, you know, getting out of the leggings, putting on a, you know, a cute skirt, whatever makes you happy, whether that's, you know, setting the table. Since reading the series, I actually got a tablecloth and I love it. I've never had a tablecloth on our table before and I just love it. And it's like the smallest thing. I got it for like $4.99 at Goodwill. Nothing major, but it just looks beautiful, and it's just like that one little simple thing and it just fills me with joy. And this is a really great series to just kind of just enhance life, everyday life, just a little bit more. I'll put the books on screen. There's 3 of them. I particularly liked the Polish Your Poise and Lessons from Madame Chic, but the homemaking one was also really good, especially I think if you have kids. I don't have kids, so maybe it was a little less relevant, at least in that aspect for me, but highly recommend. It's just an enjoyable, it's lighthearted, it's not, you know, too difficult or anything to get through, but the anecdotes make it so interesting, and there's lots of practical application and tips as well, so you can actually make some nice little changes to your life as you would like to. It's really enjoyable. I personally got a lot out of it. I would like to reread them or even own them in the future. But anyways, that wraps us up for 22 books for 2022. I'm sorry if my voice is giving out a little bit. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know down below, what were your top reads this year? What books were just the best for you? I ended up reading over 130 books this year, which I've never read that many books in a year before. I think previously I'd read something in like the high 80s, so I definitely had a lot to choose from, and these were just the ones that when I scanned through the list, these were the ones I was like, yes, these are the ones that had the biggest impact on me, the ones that I'm just still thinking about the plots and the mysteries and the characters, the ones I'm most excited for like the next release for. These are the ones I had to put together on this list. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please let me know if you've read any of the books on this list, what your thoughts were, what your recommendations that you read this year, like what would you recommend above all else. I do upload new content every single week, especially within the mystery genre, but I do talk about other books like thrillers, classics, historical fiction, and occasionally nonfiction as well. And I hope you guys will join me. Thank you guys again for watching.